In a small coastal town surrounded by golden beaches and swaying palm trees, life moved at a leisurely pace. Everyone knew each other's stories, and gossip traveled faster than the waves crashing against the shore. It was here that Arjun lived, a man who seemed larger than life to most people. With his tall frame, confident smile, and magnetic charm, he had always been the center of attention wherever he went. Whether it was at the local market, the bustling cafe near the beach, or the annual town festivals, Arjun was someone everyone noticed. For years, Arjun had dated casually, never settling down with anyone for too long. But everything changed when he met Priya, a soft-spoken yet determined woman who worked as a teacher at the nearby school. Unlike many others who were intimidated by Arjun's charisma, Priya saw through his bravado and recognized the good heart beneath. She didn't fall for his flashy charm right away. Instead, she challenged him to be better, to think deeper, and to care more about those around him. Slowly but surely, Arjun found himself falling in love with her quiet strength and unwavering kindness. Their relationship blossomed over months of shared laughter, deep conversations, and stolen moments under the stars. When Arjun finally proposed, the entire town erupted in excitement. The wedding preparations became the talk of the season, with neighbors pitching in to help decorate, cook, and plan the grand celebration. For Priya, it was a dream come true. She had always imagined building a life with someone who would stand by her side, support her dreams, and cherish her unconditionally. And for Arjun, marrying Priya felt like the beginning of a new chapter, one where he could leave behind his reckless past and step into responsibility and stability. The wedding day arrived and the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. The venue was set up beautifully with strings of colorful lanterns hanging above rows of white chairs. Flowers adorned every corner, their sweet fragrance filling the air. Friends and family gathered eagerly, dressed in their finest clothes, ready to witness the union of two people they admired dearly. As Priya walked down the aisle in her elegant sari, her eyes glistening with happiness, Arjun couldn't help but feel proud. He held her hands during the ceremony, promising to love and protect her for the rest of his life. In that moment, surrounded by cheering guests and heartfelt blessings, neither of them could have predicted how drastically their lives would change in just a matter of days. The first hint of trouble came shortly after the honeymoon ended. A familiar face returned to town, Meera, an old flame from Arjun's younger days. Meera had left years ago to pursue opportunities abroad, but now she was back, bringing with her tales of adventure and success. Her presence stirred something in Arjun, a mix of nostalgia and curiosity. They ran into each other at the weekly market, and before long they were chatting animatedly, reminiscing about old times and catching up on what they had missed. To Arjun, Meera seemed different somehow, more confident, more worldly, and far more intriguing than he remembered. At first, Priya didn't pay much attention to Arjun's renewed friendship with Meera. After all, she trusted him completely and believed that their bond was strong enough to withstand anything. However, things began to shift subtly. Arjun started spending less time at home and more time catching up with Meera. Phone calls stretched late into the night, and plans with friends often included her. Though Priya tried not to let it bother her, she couldn't ignore the growing distance between them. Then came the day that shattered any semblance of peace in their marriage. The town was hosting its annual harvest festival, a lively event filled with music, dancing, and delicious food. Families gathered to celebrate together, and naturally, Arjun and Priya attended as well. What happened next shocked everyone present. As Arjun mingled with the crowd, he spotted Meera across the courtyard. Without hesitation, he excused himself from Priya's side and made a beeline toward her. For the rest of the evening, he barely acknowledged Priya's existence. Instead, he laughed loudly at Meera's jokes, leaned in close to hear her stories, and even introduced her to mutual acquaintances as if she were the guest of honor. Priya stood frozen, watching the scene unfold before her. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment as whispers rippled through the crowd. Some pitied her while others judged her silently, wondering why she tolerated such behavior. Inside, her heart ached, not just because of Arjun's actions, but because she realized how little respect he showed for her feelings. When the night finally came to an end, Priya retreated to their home without saying a word. Tears streamed down her face as she replayed the events in her mind, questioning whether she truly knew the man she had married. That night, Arjun returned home later than usual, still basking in the thrill of reconnecting with Meera. He expected Priya to confront him, perhaps yell or cry, but instead she greeted him with icy silence. Her expression was unreadable, her eyes hollow with disappointment. Trying to justify his behavior, Arjun shrugged off her anger, telling her that she was overreacting. "It's just harmless fun," he said dismissively. "You're making a big deal out of nothing." His words cut deeper than any insult could have. In that moment, Priya understood that arguing would only drain her further. So, she chose to retreat inward, vowing to shield herself from the pain he so carelessly inflicted. As days passed, Priya threw herself into her work at the school. Teaching became her refuge, a place where she could focus on nurturing young minds rather than dwelling on her crumbling marriage. Her students adored her, sensing her warmth and dedication despite the turmoil in her personal life. Meanwhile, Arjun continued to chase after Meera, convinced that she held the key to a more exciting future. Yet, even as he reveled in her company, a nagging feeling lingered in the back of his mind, a faint unease that he couldn't quite shake off. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would test him in ways he never imagined. As the days turned into weeks, Arjun's relationship with Meera grew stronger, or so it seemed on the surface. They spent almost every evening together, exploring the town, sharing meals at fancy restaurants, and laughing over old memories. To the outside world, they appeared to be the perfect pair, two adventurous souls reconnecting after years apart. But beneath the laughter and charm, cracks began to form in their dynamic. Meera wasn't like the carefree girl Arjun remembered from his youth. She had changed, and not always for the better. Meera was sharp-tongued and quick to criticize. At first, her comments were subtle, a teasing remark about how Arjun dressed, or a playful jab at his lack of ambition. But soon her words grew sharper, cutting deeper into his confidence. She mocked his decision to settle down so early in life, calling him boring and predictable. When Arjun tried to defend himself, she would brush him off with a laugh, saying he couldn't take a joke. Over time, these small barbs chipped away at his self-esteem, leaving him feeling unsure of himself and questioning whether he had made the right choices in life. Meanwhile, Priya continued to focus on her work, pouring all her energy into teaching. Her students became her priority, and she found immense joy in helping them grow. Word spread around town about how dedicated she was, often staying late at school to tutor struggling children or visiting their homes to understand their families' challenges. Parents praised her endlessly, grateful for the positive impact she had on their kids. Slowly but surely, people began to see Priya in a new light, not just as Arjun's neglected wife, but as a strong, independent woman who refused to let bitterness consume her. Despite her outward strength, Priya wasn't immune to pain. Nights were the hardest for her. Alone in their quiet home, she would sit by the window, staring out at the ocean while tears silently rolled down her cheeks. She replayed moments from her marriage, the promises Arjun had made, the dreams they had shared, and wondered where things had gone wrong. Yet even in her darkest hours, she never allowed herself to wallow in self-pity. Instead, she reminded herself of the values she held dear: dignity, resilience, and compassion. These principles kept her grounded and gave her the strength to face each new day. Back in Arjun's world, his bond with Meera started showing signs of strain. Though he admired her boldness and independence, he also found himself longing for the warmth and understanding Priya once offered. He missed coming home to someone who genuinely cared about him, someone who listened without judgment and supported him unconditionally. Meera, on the other hand, rarely showed vulnerability. She kept him at arm's length, treating their relationship more like a casual fling than something serious. Whenever Arjun hinted at wanting to spend more time together or deepen their connection, she would deflect, claiming she valued her freedom too much to commit to anyone. One evening, during a community gathering at the beach, Arjun noticed something that stopped him in his tracks. As fireworks lit up the night sky, painting vibrant colors across the horizon, he spotted Priya standing near the edge of the crowd. She was surrounded by her students, their faces glowing with admiration and respect. They clung to her every word, hanging on to stories she told about constellations and the mysteries of the universe. Watching her interact with them, Arjun felt an unexpected pang of regret. He realized how much he had taken her for granted, her patience, her wisdom, her ability to inspire others. For the first time in months, he saw her not as his wife, but as the incredible person she truly was. That realization weighed heavily on him as he drove home later that night. The streets were empty, the only sound being the soft hum of his car engine. His mind raced with conflicting thoughts. Was it too late to fix things with Priya? Could he ever earn back her trust after everything he had done? By the time he reached their house, he had resolved to apologize, to tell her how sorry he was for hurting her and ask for another chance. But when he walked through the door, he found her sitting quietly on the couch, reading a book. Her expression was calm, almost serene, but there was a distance in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "I'm sorry," Arjun blurted out, his voice trembling with emotion. "I messed up. I didn't mean to hurt you." Priya lowered her book and looked at him, her gaze steady and piercing. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, in a tone devoid of anger but heavy with sadness, she replied, "Words don't change actions, Arjun. You can say sorry all you want, but it doesn't erase what happened." Her response hit him like a punch to the gut. He had expected resistance, maybe even anger, but this quiet resignation was far worse. It made him realize just how deeply he had damaged their relationship. Desperate to make amends, he promised to change, to be a better husband, to prove himself worthy of her forgiveness. But Priya remained guarded, unwilling to let him back into her heart so easily. She needed time, she said, to heal and rebuild herself. And though it pained him to hear those words, Arjun knew she was right. Around the same time, tensions between Arjun and Meera reached a breaking point. During one of their outings, Meera openly criticized him for being indecisive, accusing him of stringing her along while still clinging to his marriage. "You're wasting my time," she snapped, her voice laced with frustration. "If you can't choose between me and your wife, then maybe we shouldn't bother anymore." With that, she stormed off, leaving Arjun stunned and alone. Days later, Meera announced that she was leaving town again. She claimed she was bored with the monotony of small-town life and frustrated with Arjun's inability to commit. Though part of him felt relieved, another part mourned the loss of yet another relationship. As he watched her drive away, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had squandered something precious, something he could never get back. With both Priya and Meera pulling away from him, Arjun found himself adrift, unsure of where to turn next. The man who had once thrived on attention and admiration now felt invisible, disconnected from the people who mattered most. It was a humbling experience, forcing him to confront the consequences of his actions. For the first time in his life, Arjun understood what it meant to lose, not just relationships, but pieces of himself along the way. Determined to salvage what remained of his marriage, Arjun decided to take action. He began volunteering at the school where Priya taught, offering to help organize events and mentor students. At first, his efforts were met with skepticism. Both Priya and her colleagues wondered if his sudden interest was genuine or just another attempt to win favor. But as weeks went by, they saw glimpses of sincerity in his behavior. He arrived early to set up classrooms, stayed late to clean up after events, and took the time to listen to the children's stories. Slowly, trust began to rebuild, not just with Priya but with the entire community. Though progress was slow, Arjun refused to give up. He attended parent-teacher meetings, helped raise funds for school supplies, and even accompanied Priya on visits to students' homes. Through these experiences, he gained a newfound appreciation for the challenges she faced daily. He marveled, at her patience, her creativity, and her unwavering dedication to making a difference in the lives of others. Each interaction brought him closer to understanding the woman she was and the man he needed to become. For Priya, seeing Arjun's transformation was bittersweet. On one hand, she recognized the effort he was putting in. On the other, she struggled to let go of the hurt he had caused. Their conversations grew longer, filled with tentative hopes for the future. Yet there was still a lingering tension, a reminder of the scars that hadn't fully healed. Despite the uncertainty, Priya allowed herself to believe, for the first time in months, that perhaps redemption was possible. But little did either of them know, fate had one final test in store for them. As weeks turned into months, Arjun's efforts to reconnect with Priya began to show signs of progress. Though she remained cautious, Priya started opening up, little by little. Their conversations grew longer and more meaningful, filled with reflections on their past and tentative hopes for the future. Arjun spoke about how much he admired her strength and resilience, qualities he admitted he had overlooked before. Priya listened quietly, her heart softening ever so slightly with each word. Yet beneath her calm exterior, she wrestled with conflicting emotions, hope that Arjun had truly changed, but also fear that history might repeat itself. One evening, as they sat together on the porch watching the sunset, Arjun brought up a topic that had been weighing heavily on his mind. "Do you think we could start over?" he asked hesitantly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not just as husband and wife, but as friends first. I want us to build something real this time." Priya didn't answer immediately. She stared out at the horizon, where the sky was painted in hues of orange and pink, and took a deep breath. "I don't know if I'm ready for that yet," she said finally, turning to look at him. "But I do believe you're trying, and maybe one day we can get there." Her response gave Arjun a glimmer of hope. He knew it wouldn't be easy to regain her trust completely, but hearing those words made him realize that all his hard work was beginning to pay off. From that moment on, he committed himself even more fully to proving that he deserved a second chance, not just from Priya, but from everyone who had doubted him. At school, Arjun became an integral part of the community. He helped organize science fairs, sports tournaments, and cultural events, earning praise from teachers and parents alike. The students adored him, especially after he started coaching the school's football team. His energy and enthusiasm were infectious, and soon, the once struggling team began winning matches under his guidance. For the first time in years, Arjun felt like he was making a real difference, not just in his own life, but in the lives of others. Meanwhile, Priya continued to shine in her role as a teacher. Her dedication inspired everyone around her, including Arjun. Watching her interact with her students, he couldn't help but marvel at her ability to connect with people on such a deep level. She had a way of making even the shyest child feel seen and valued, and it reminded him of why he had fallen in love with her in the first place. Slowly, he began to see glimpses of the old Priya, the one who laughed freely, dreamed big, and believed in the goodness of others. It gave him hope that perhaps they could find their way back to each other. But just as things seemed to be improving, tragedy struck without warning. One morning, while preparing breakfast, Priya suddenly collapsed. Alarmed, Arjun rushed her to the hospital, where doctors ran a series of tests. Hours later, they delivered devastating news. Priya had been diagnosed with a rare autoimmune condition that required immediate treatment. The illness was serious, and though it wasn't terminal, managing it would be a lifelong challenge. For Arjun, the diagnosis felt like a punch to the gut. All the progress they had made, the fragile bond they were rebuilding, now hung precariously in the balance. Sitting beside Priya's hospital bed, he held her hand tightly, vowing to stand by her no matter what. "We'll get through this together," he promised, his voice choked with emotion. "I won't leave your side." Priya appreciated his words, but she couldn't ignore the irony of the situation. Just months ago, he had spurned her publicly and emotionally abandoned her. Now here he was, pledging his unwavering support. She wanted to believe him, to trust that he meant every word, but the scars of betrayal ran deep. Still, she nodded weakly, too exhausted to argue or dwell on the past. What mattered now was focusing on her health and fighting the battle ahead. Over the following weeks, Arjun threw himself into caring for Priya. He accompanied her to doctor appointments, researched treatment options, and ensured she followed her medication schedule meticulously. At home, he cooked nutritious meals, cleaned the house, and handled everyday chores so she could rest. Though the physical demands were exhausting, the emotional toll was far greater. Seeing Priya struggle with pain and fatigue broke his heart, and he often found himself lying awake at night wondering if he could have prevented this somehow. The illness also brought unexpected challenges to their relationship. Priya's condition left her feeling vulnerable and dependent, a stark contrast to the strong, independent woman she had always been. She hated asking for help, and sometimes frustration bubbled over during moments of weakness. There were days when she snapped at Arjun, accusing him of hovering too much or treating her like a patient rather than a partner. Each outburst stung, but instead of retreating, Arjun chose to listen and adapt. He learned to give her space when she needed it and stepped in only when necessary. Gradually, they found a rhythm that worked for both of them. During this difficult period, the town rallied around Priya and Arjun. Friends, neighbors, and colleagues offered their support in countless ways, bringing meals, babysitting children whose parents were busy helping out, and organizing fundraisers to cover medical expenses. The overwhelming kindness of the community touched Priya deeply, reminding her that she wasn't alone in this fight. It also strengthened her resolve to keep pushing forward, not just for herself, but for the people who cared about her. As months passed, Priya's condition stabilized thanks to proper treatment and relentless care. Though she still faced daily challenges, her spirit remained unbroken. She returned to teaching part-time, determined to continue inspiring her students despite her limitations. Her courage amazed everyone, including Arjun, who watched her persevere with awe and admiration. In many ways, her journey taught him valuable lessons about resilience, patience, and unconditional love. For Arjun, caring for Priya became a transformative experience. It forced him to confront his own flaws and insecurities, to let go of his ego, and to embrace vulnerability. He realized that true love wasn't about grand gestures or fleeting passions. It was about showing up consistently, being present, and supporting someone through thick and thin. Through Priya's illness, he discovered a depth of empathy and compassion he never knew he possessed. Despite the hardships, there were moments of light amidst the darkness. On quiet evenings, they would sit together on the porch, sharing stories and laughter like they used to. Priya began to open up more, talking about her fears and dreams while Arjun listened intently, offering comfort and reassurance. These small, intimate moments brought them closer than ever before, laying the foundation for a renewed connection built on mutual respect and understanding. Yet, even as their bond grew stronger, Priya couldn't shake the lingering question. Could Arjun truly change? Was he capable of sustaining this level of commitment, or would he revert to his old ways once the crisis passed? She didn't voice these doubts aloud, choosing instead to focus on the present and cherish the time they had together. But deep down, she knew that only time would tell whether their relationship could withstand the test of adversity, and whether Arjun's transformation was genuine or temporary. As winter approached, the town prepared for its annual festival, a celebration of unity and gratitude. This year, the event held special significance for Arjun and Priya. Despite her ongoing health struggles, Priya insisted on attending, saying it was important to honor traditions and spend time with loved ones. Arjun agreed wholeheartedly, seeing it as an opportunity to create new memories and celebrate how far they had come together. On the night of the festival, the town square buzzed with excitement. Lanterns hung overhead, casting a warm glow over the crowd while music and laughter filled the air. Arjun stood beside Priya, holding her hand as they walked through the bustling streets. For the first time in months, they felt a sense of normalcy, a reminder that life, though unpredictable, was still beautiful. As fireworks exploded in the sky, painting vibrant colors across the horizon, Arjun turned to Priya and smiled. "Thank "You for giving me another chance," he said softly. "I know I don't deserve it, but I promise to spend the rest of my life making it up to you." Tears welled up in Priya's eyes as she looked at him. She didn't respond right away, letting the weight of his words sink in. Then, with a faint smile, she whispered, "Let's take it one day at a time." And for now, that was enough. The months that followed the festival marked a turning point for Arjun and Priya. Though their journey was far from smooth, they began to navigate life together with a newfound sense of purpose. Priya's condition remained a constant challenge, requiring regular doctor visits, medication adjustments, and lifestyle changes. Yet she approached each hurdle with remarkable grace and determination. Her resilience inspired those around her, including Arjun, who continued to stand by her side through every step of the process. Arjun threw himself into supporting Priya in ways he never thought possible. He read books about her illness, attended workshops on caregiving, and joined online forums where people shared advice and encouragement. His dedication didn't go unnoticed. Friends and family often remarked on how much he had changed, praising him for stepping up when it mattered most. But despite the positive feedback, Arjun knew his efforts weren't about earning praise. They were about proving to Priya, and to himself, that he could be the man she needed him to be. At school, Priya resumed her teaching duties part-time, adapting her schedule to accommodate her health needs. She focused on creating lesson plans that were engaging yet manageable, ensuring her students received the best education possible, even as she dealt with her own limitations. Her colleagues admired her tenacity, and her students adored her more than ever. They noticed how she smiled through difficult days and encouraged them to face their own challenges with courage. For many of the children, Priya became not just a teacher but a role model, a living example of strength and perseverance. As winter gave way to spring, the town began preparing for another community event, a charity run aimed at raising funds for local healthcare initiatives. Priya decided to participate, though she knew it would be tough. Running long distances wasn't feasible for her anymore, so she opted to walk the shorter route instead. Arjun immediately signed up to join her, determined to support her every step of the way. Together they trained for weeks, pacing themselves carefully and celebrating small victories along the way. On the day of the event, the atmosphere was electric. Hundreds of participants gathered at the starting line, cheered on by friends, family, and well-wishers. As Arjun and Priya stood side by side, ready to begin, they exchanged a glance filled with quiet resolve. The race wasn't about winning, it was about taking control of their lives and proving that they could overcome anything together. The course wound through scenic paths lined with blooming flowers and towering trees. Along the way, volunteers handed out water bottles and snacks, while spectators clapped and shouted words of encouragement. Arjun stayed close to Priya, offering steady support whenever she felt tired or discouraged. At one point, near the halfway mark, Priya slowed down, her legs aching and her energy waning. Seeing her struggle, Arjun gently reminded her to focus on the moment rather than the finish line. "We're doing this together," he said softly. One step at a time. With renewed determination, Priya pushed forward, drawing strength from Arjun's unwavering presence. By the time they crossed the finish line, both were exhausted, but elated. Tears streamed down Priya's face as she hugged Arjun tightly, overwhelmed by a mix of emotions, pride, gratitude, and a deep sense of accomplishment. It was a moment neither of them would forget, a testament to their ability to conquer adversity as a team. In the weeks that followed, Arjun and Priya grew closer than ever before. Their shared experiences during the race reinforced the bond they had been rebuilding slowly over time. Conversations flowed more easily now, filled with laughter, dreams, and reflections on their journey. Arjun made it a point to express his appreciation for Priya daily, whether through small gestures like leaving her handwritten notes or larger acts like planning surprise outings. Each effort, no matter how minor, helped mend the cracks in their relationship, yet beneath the surface, doubt still lingered, for Priya especially. While she appreciated Arjun's transformation, she couldn't entirely let go of the past. Memories of his betrayal haunted her, resurfacing during moments of vulnerability. Late at night, when sleep evaded her, she would lie awake wondering If his change was permanent or merely temporary, would he remain committed once the novelty of redemption wore off? Or would old habits creep back in? These questions weighed heavily on her heart, but Priya chose not to dwell on them openly. Instead, she focused on the present, cherishing the progress they had made while remaining cautiously optimistic about the future. She understood that healing took time, and that true forgiveness required patience, not just from her but from Arjun as well. For Arjun, the realization that Priya still harbored doubts came as a sobering wake-up call. One evening after dinner, he found her sitting alone on the porch staring out at the horizon. Her expression was thoughtful, almost melancholic, and it struck him how much she had endured silently. Sitting beside her, he placed a gentle hand on hers and asked, "What are you thinking about?" Priya hesitated, unsure whether to voice her concerns. Finally, she sighed and said, "I'm happy with how things are going between us. You've done so much to make amends, and I see how hard you're trying. But sometimes, I wonder if this is just a phase. What happens when life gets easier again? Will you still feel the same way?" Her honesty caught Arjun off guard, but he realized it was exactly what he needed to hear. Rather than dismissing her fears, he acknowledged them openly. "I can't promise that I'll never mess up," he admitted, his voice sincere. "But I can promise that I'll keep working on myself, for you, for us. If I slip, I hope you'll tell me, because I don't want to lose what we have now, ever." His words touched Priya deeply. Though she didn't respond immediately, a faint smile played on her lips, signaling that his answer meant something to her. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to believe that perhaps their love could endure, even if it required effort and sacrifice from both sides. As summer approached, the town buzzed with excitement for its annual beach cleanup initiative. This year, Priya and Arjun decided to lead the project, eager to give back to the community that had supported them through thick and thin. They spent weeks organizing volunteers, coordinating logistics, and spreading awareness about environmental conservation. On the day of the event, hundreds of residents turned out armed with gloves, trash bags, and a shared desire to make a difference. Watching everyone come together filled Arjun with pride. He saw how much Priya had inspired others, not just through her work at the school but also through her quiet leadership in everyday life. People admired her for her kindness, her wisdom, and her ability to bring out the best in those around her. Standing beside her on the sandy shore, he felt grateful, not just for having her in his life, but for the opportunity to grow alongside someone so extraordinary. By late afternoon, the beach sparkled under the golden sunlight, free of debris and litter. Exhausted but satisfied, the volunteers gathered for a celebratory picnic. Laughter echoed across the shoreline as families shared meals and children played in the waves. Arjun and Priya sat together, watching the scene unfold before them. In that moment, surrounded by joy and camaraderie, they felt a profound sense of peace, a reminder that life, despite its challenges, held beauty worth fighting for. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Arjun turned to Priya and said, "You know, I used to think happiness was about chasing excitement or adventure. But being here with you, helping others, and building something meaningful, that's what truly matters. Thank you for showing me that." Priya smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Thank you for listening," she replied simply. "For seeing me. For staying." The exchange was brief but powerful, encapsulating everything they had worked toward since the darkest days of their marriage. It wasn't perfect and it wasn't easy, but it was real. And for now, that was enough. Yet even as they celebrated their progress, neither Arjun nor Priya could foresee the storm brewing on the horizon. Life, as unpredictable as ever, had one final test in store, a challenge that would push them to their limits and force them to confront the depths of their commitment to each other. As the summer heat gave way to the cool breezes of autumn, Arjun and Priya settled into a rhythm that felt almost normal. Their days were filled with small joys, shared meals, quiet evenings on the porch, and moments of laughter that reminded them of happier times. Yet beneath the surface of this newfound harmony, both carried lingering fears about the future. For Priya, it was the uncertainty of her health. For Arjun, it was the fear of losing the fragile trust they had rebuilt. One crisp morning, as golden sunlight filtered through the trees, Priya woke up feeling unusually weak. Her limbs felt heavy, and a dull ache throbbed in her chest. She tried to brush it off as fatigue, but by midday the symptoms worsened. Concerned, Arjun insisted on taking her to the hospital. The doctors ran tests, their faces grave as they delivered the news. Priya's condition had worsened. The autoimmune disease that had once been manageable was now progressing rapidly, requiring more aggressive treatment and constant monitoring. The diagnosis hit them like a tidal wave. Priya sat silently in the examination room, staring at the floor as tears streamed down her cheeks. Arjun held her hand tightly, his throat tight with emotion. "We'll face this together," he whispered, though his voice trembled with fear. He knew the road ahead would be grueling, but he also understood there was no turning back. This was their reality now, and they had no choice but to endure it side by side. Over the following weeks, Priya underwent a series of treatments, medications, therapies, and procedures designed to slow the progression of her illness. Each session left her drained, physically and emotionally. There were days when she couldn't even muster the strength to get out of bed, let alone teach or interact with others. On those days, Arjun became her anchor. He cooked her favorite meals, read aloud to her from books, and simply sat beside her, holding her hand as she drifted in and out of sleep. Despite his best efforts, Arjun struggled with feelings of helplessness. No matter how much he did, it never seemed enough. Watching Priya suffer broke his heart, and he often retreated to the beach late at night, seeking solace in the rhythmic sound of the waves. During one such visit, he found himself reflecting on their journey, the mistakes he had made, the pain he had caused, and the love that still bound them together. It struck him then that life was unpredictable, fleeting even. Every moment mattered, and every opportunity to show kindness should be seized without hesitation. Determined to make the most of their time together, Arjun began creating special memories for Priya. He planned simple yet meaningful outings, a picnic under the stars, a walk through the forest, and visits to places she loved. One weekend he surprised her with a trip to the botanical garden, where vibrant flowers bloomed in every direction. As they strolled along the winding paths, Priya's eyes lit up with joy. For a brief moment, the weight of her illness seemed to lift, replaced by pure happiness. These moments of light, however fleeting, reminded them of what truly mattered. They talked openly about their dreams, fears, and regrets, sharing parts of themselves they had kept hidden for years. Priya confessed that she sometimes worried about leaving Arjun behind, fearing he might struggle to move on after she was gone. Arjun reassured her, saying, "You've already given me so much, your love, your strength, your forgiveness. If anything happens, I'll carry those gifts with me forever." Though their conversations were bittersweet, they brought a sense of closure and clarity. Both realized that their relationship wasn't defined by perfection, but by resilience, the ability to weather storms and find beauty amidst chaos. It was this understanding that allowed them to cherish each other fully, knowing that time was precious and uncertain. Meanwhile, the town rallied around them once again. Friends, neighbors, and colleagues organized fundraisers to cover Priya's medical expenses, which had become overwhelming. Students sent handmade cards and letters expressing their love and support, while parents offered to help with household chores and errands. The outpouring of kindness touched Priya deeply, reinforcing her belief in the goodness of people. She often told Arjun how lucky they were to live in such a caring community, and he agreed wholeheartedly. As winter approached, Priya's condition stabilized slightly, allowing her to resume teaching part-time. Returning to the classroom brought her immense joy, as it provided a sense of purpose and connection. Her students noticed the change in her demeanor. She laughed more, smiled brighter, and radiated warmth despite her physical limitations. Inspired by her courage, many of them began volunteering at local charities, eager to give back to the community that had supported their beloved teacher. Arjun, too, found fulfillment in helping others. He continued volunteering at the school, mentoring students and organizing events that brought people together. His efforts earned him respect and admiration, not just from Priya but from everyone who witnessed his transformation. Gone was the selfish man who had once chased fleeting pleasures. In his place stood someone committed to making a difference, someone who valued relationships over appearances. Yet even as they embraced their roles within the community, shadows loomed large. Priya's health remained fragile, and there were days when the toll of her illness overwhelmed her. During one particularly difficult week, she confided in Arjun about her fears of becoming a burden. "I don't want you to feel trapped," she said softly, her voice tinged with sadness. "You deserve a life full of happiness and freedom." Arjun listened quietly, letting her words sink in. Then, taking her hands in his, he replied, "You are my happiness, Priya. You always have been. Freedom doesn't mean running away from challenges. It means facing them head-on together. I choose you every single day." His response brought tears to Priya's eyes, but they were tears of gratitude rather than despair. She realized then that their bond had transcended mere affection. It had evolved into something deeper, rooted in mutual respect and unwavering support. Though the future remained uncertain, she felt a sense of peace knowing that whatever lay ahead, they would face it as one. As the year drew to a close, the town prepared for its annual Christmas celebration, a tradition marked by carol singing, candlelight vigils, and acts of goodwill. Priya and Arjun decided to participate actively, seeing it as an opportunity to spread cheer and gratitude. They decorated their home with twinkling lights, baked cookies for neighbors, and spent hours wrapping gifts for children in need. Their efforts brought them closer, reminding them of the joy that came from giving. On Christmas Eve, the entire town gathered at the beach for a special ceremony. Families huddled together around bonfires, sharing stories and laughter as the sound of carols filled the air. Arjun and Priya stood side by side, watching the flames dance against the dark sky. In that moment, surrounded by love and unity, they felt a profound sense of belonging, a reminder that life, though imperfect, was beautiful in its own way. Midnight approached. Arjun turned to Priya and said, "No matter what happens, know that I'll always be here for you. Not because I have to, but because I want to." Priya smiled, her heart swelling with emotion. "And I'll always be here for you too," she whispered. Through everything. Their exchange was simple yet profound, encapsulating the essence of their journey, a testament to the power of love, forgiveness, and perseverance. Though challenges still awaited them, they faced the unknown with hope and determination, knowing that their bond was stronger than any obstacle. But fate, as unpredictable as ever, had one final chapter to write, a twist neither of them could have anticipated. As the new year dawned, bringing promises of fresh beginnings, it also ushered in a trial that would test the very core of their relationship. The new year began with a sense of cautious optimism for Arjun and Priya. Though Priya's health remained fragile, they clung to the hope that her treatments would continue to keep her condition stable. They spent their days cherishing small moments, quiet mornings sipping tea, walks along the beach at sunset, and evenings filled with laughter as they reminisced about old memories. Life felt peaceful, almost serene, as if the universe had granted them a brief reprieve from the storms they had weathered, but peace, they soon learned, was fleeting. One chilly January morning, Priya woke up feeling weaker than usual. Her breathing was labored and a sharp pain radiated through her chest. Alarmed, Arjun rushed her to the hospital. The doctors conducted numerous tests, their expressions growing increasingly somber with each passing hour. Finally, they delivered the devastating news. Priya's illness had taken a critical turn. Her body was struggling to respond to treatment, and her organs were beginning to fail. Time, they warned, was running out. The diagnosis shattered Arjun. He sat in the sterile hospital corridor, his head buried in his hands, as tears streamed down his face. How could this be happening? After everything they had been through, their struggles, their reconciliation, their renewed love, it seemed cruelly unfair that fate would snatch it all away just as they had begun to rebuild their lives together. Yet, even in his despair, he resolved to stay strong for Priya. She needed him now more than ever, and he vowed not to let her down. Priya, too, faced the news with remarkable grace. Though fear lingered in her eyes, she refused to let it consume her. Instead, she focused on making the most of whatever time she had left. "I don't want to spend my days worrying about what might happen," she told Arjun one evening, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "I want to live fully, even if it's only for a little while longer." Her courage inspired Arjun to do the same. Together, they created a list of things they wanted to experience before it was too late. A bucket list of sorts, filled with simple yet meaningful activities. They visited places they had always dreamed of seeing, shared meals at their favorite restaurants, and reconnected with friends and family who meant the world to them. Each day became a celebration of life, a reminder that love and joy could still flourish even in the face of adversity. One of their most cherished outings was a trip to the nearby hills, where wildflowers bloomed in vibrant colors against the backdrop of towering trees. As they walked hand in hand along the narrow trails, Priya paused to admire the view. "It's beautiful here," she said softly, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "I wish we could stay like this forever." Arjun squeezed her hand gently. "We can," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Not here maybe, but in our hearts. This moment will always be ours." Their journey wasn't without its challenges. There were days when Priya's pain was unbearable, forcing her to stay in bed for hours on end. On those days, Arjun stayed by her side, reading aloud from her favorite books or simply holding her hand as she drifted in and out of sleep. He marveled at her strength, her ability to endure suffering with dignity and grace. It made him realize how much he had underestimated her and how much he still had to learn from her. As weeks passed, Priya grew weaker, her energy dwindling with each passing day. Yet her spirit remained unbroken. She continued teaching part-time, determined to leave a lasting impact on her students. Her lessons became less about academics and more about life, about kindness, resilience, and the importance of finding beauty in every moment. The children adored her, sensing the depth of her wisdom and the warmth of her heart. Many of them wrote letters expressing their gratitude, vowing to carry her teachings with them long after she was gone. The town, too, rallied around Priya and Arjun once again. Friends brought meals, neighbors offered prayers, and strangers sent messages of support. The overwhelming kindness touched Priya deeply, reminding her of the goodness in humanity. She often told Arjun how grateful she was to have lived among such compassionate people. "It makes saying goodbye a little easier," she admitted one evening, her voice tinged with both sadness and acceptance. Despite her brave facade, there were moments when Priya's vulnerability surfaced. Late at night, when the house was quiet and the world outside lay shrouded in darkness, she would cry softly, overwhelmed by the thought of leaving Arjun behind. Sensing her distress, Arjun held her close, whispering reassurances into her ear. "You've already given me so much," he said. "Your love, your strength, your forgiveness, they'll stay with me forever. No matter what happens, I'll always carry you in my heart." His words brought her comfort, easing the ache of impending loss. She realized then that their bond transcended physical presence. It was woven into the fabric of their souls, unbreakable even in death. With this understanding came a sense of peace, allowing her to embrace the final chapter of her life with grace and serenity. As spring approached, bringing with it the promise of renewal, Priya's condition worsened significantly. She spent most of her days in bed, too weak to move or speak. Yet even in her frail state, she radiated warmth, her smile lighting up the room whenever Arjun entered. He rarely left her side, tending to her needs with unwavering devotion. Their conversations grew shorter, consisting mostly of silent glances and gentle touches, but the depth of their connection remained unchanged. One sunny afternoon, as birds chirped outside the window and a soft breeze rustled the curtains. Priya turned to Arjun and whispered, "Thank you for loving me." Her voice was faint, barely audible, but the sincerity in her eyes spoke volumes. Arjun leaned forward, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "Thank you for teaching me how to love," he replied, his voice choked with emotion. That evening, surrounded by loved ones, Priya took her last breath. Her passing was peaceful, marked by an aura of calm that enveloped the room. Arjun sat beside her, holding her hand until it grew cold. Tears streamed down his face, but amidst the grief he felt a profound sense of gratitude for the time they had shared, for the lessons she had taught him, and for the love that would forever remain etched in his heart. In the days that followed, the town mourned the loss of a beloved teacher and friend. Hundreds attended her funeral, sharing stories of how she had touched their lives. Students placed flowers on her grave, promising to honor her memory by living with kindness and purpose. Arjun stood quietly among the crowd, listening to their tributes with a mixture of pride and sorrow. He knew Priya's legacy would endure, carried forward by those whose lives she had impacted. Though the pain of her absence was unbearable, Arjun found solace in keeping her memory alive. He dedicated himself to continuing her work, transforming the school into a hub of learning and compassion. He organized programs to support underprivileged children, ensuring that no student was left behind. Every year on the anniversary of their wedding, he visited her grave, laying flowers and whispering promises to live fully and selflessly, just as she had taught him. Years later, as he stood beneath the stars on the beach where they had once watched fireworks together, Arjun smiled through tears. He could feel Priya's presence in the gentle breeze, hear her laughter in the crashing waves. Though she was gone, her love remained, a guiding light that illuminated his path, reminding him of the beauty and resilience of the human spirit. And so Arjun continued living, not just for himself, but for the woman who had shown him the true meaning of love. Through her sacrifice, her strength, and her unwavering faith in him, she had transformed his life in ways he never thought possible. Her memory became his anchor, grounding him during moments of doubt and inspiring him to embrace the future with hope and courage. For in losing her, he had discovered a love that transcended time, a love that would forever remain alive in his heart.